And Darrell Waltrip is with us. And DW, Tuesday night, Rich Bickle told me to ask you about his future plans. Now, what's going on?
Well, you know, unlike some car owners, you get a car and then you go look for a sponsor and then you go look for a driver. I felt it was in my interest to get a driver first and then try to build a team around that driver. I don't know what, right now there's a lot of options with Rich. I tell you what I like about Rich Bickle. He's a blue-collar racer. He's worked on cars, he's built cars, he has a great short track history. I think he's the kind of guy that would really fit in good with me and what my future plans are. Now, if I can just figure out what the future plans are, I'll be all right.
Hey, I'll give you about 10, 12 minutes to think about the future, and we'll talk about it then. Well, go ahead.
No,
sorry.
Western Auto, John Leach from Western Auto calls me every Monday. Well, DW, what's your plans? Well, DW, what's your plans? Well, John, I don't know if you know it or not, but my plans are to run Rich next year in some limited Winston Cup races and see what else works out for us with him. I like the young man. I think he's got a lot of potential.
Now, all year long, we've heard you talk when you've, been on the other side of the camera as a commentator about Tony Stewart.
Yeah.
Did you ever try to reel him in?
Well, I think I told you the story. I may have told it to you. I thought I was going to be sly and be the first guy to get in on the Tony Stewart scoop. You know, get him in get his name in the hat. But when I started talking to Tony, he had too many options. He loves the IndyCar racing, IRL racing. Harry Renier has an interest in Tony. Other people did too, and I just didn't feel like it was in my interest to get into some sort of a legal hassle or try to go to war to get a driver. Rich was on my list from the get-go, and he worked out fine.
Rich is a good guy. I've known him for quite a few years. What about your outlook driving the car the rest of this season? We've got 5 races left.
Well, Waddell Wilson came to work for us, and he and Jeff Hammond and Pete Wright and Claude Queen, they're all working really hard to try to get me a car and win a race with. I tell you what, John, I had a great car
memories of the men and machines that have thundered through the brushy mountains. The list of winners from North Wilkesboro resembles a Hall of Fame reunion, and many can recall their own special moments that they will take with them on Sunday.
Well, I got a lot of good memories, I guess, and bad memories because we run so many races there. But probably the one that stands out the most is the incident with me and Bobby Allison back in 71, 72, I guess. Came down to the last of the race, and me and him was racing, and on the 2 or 3 laps to go, I hit him or he hit me, and then we really got with it then. And if it had been one more lap, neither one of the cars would have made it. That's how bad a shape they was in. So, I guess as far as really getting adrenaline flowing for winning a race, I happened to win the race. That was probably the most exciting moment from my standpoint because it lasted more than just one incident or one lap.
The easiest answer to that is my comeback. It was rather exciting just being back and going to the racetrack. I actually raced the Winston Cup car and the truck all at the same time, and I did a lot of testing at Wilkesboro. It was an exciting day. Probably the thing that really sticks out to my mind is when we went out to qualify. I could see people standing up, but it was unbelievable because I could hear the fans cheering me on when I was qualifying. I mean, the noise and the motor and everything didn't drown the fans out.
And Ernie Irvin is in a position to take over 2nd position and does.
A lot of people were speculating that I wouldn't be able to run the whole race and that sort of stuff. We didn't know. It was a deal that we were just going to go in there and do the best job we could. And we had a car that would really run good on real long runs. And the car wasn't very good on the short run. So then the guys started short stopping the pit stops, and that put us out of sequence because our car was good for long 60, 70, 80 lap runs, and everybody started short stopping them. So
Bobby Labonte is leading this race. He hasn't stopped yet, but Ernie Irvin is going to have himself a big lead.
But we had a good day. It was an exciting day, and just a day that we'll remember. All of our race team will remember for a long time. And it's a shame, but the racetrack kind of goes away, but we're going to have a lot of memories.
And new pole center, Terry Labonte on the pole, 19.324 seconds. Bob Delta saw it on the outside, 116.436, and Terry is going to become the Iron Man in style.
Going up there and tying Richard Petty's record for the most consecutive starts and going up there and winning the pole. That was a special day, and then we were able to come back Sunday and win the race, and that was an awesome race for us, and probably the most memorable race I've ever run at North Wilkesboro.
White flag comes out, 1 to go. 1 more trip around the 5/8 mile North Wilkesboro, North Carolina Oval. Will it be Terry Labonte or Jeff Gordon in victory lane? They're down the backstretch, still nose to tail, but Terry holding off the challenge of the defending NASCAR Winston Cup champion. Off of corner number 4, and Terry Labonte wins the first Union 400.
We weren't the best car all day, I didn't think. We were close all day, but we were leading at the end.
Well, Darrell, last one at North Wilkesboro. What do you think?
Well, of course, you know, I've had a lot of firsts there. I'd like for this to be I'd like for this to be a last for me. I'd like to win the last race here, but those boys can talk memories all they want to, but I don't think anybody's had any more memories at that racetrack than I have. Winning there the times that I have for junior, and it just was a great place to go. We tested there. I probably got more laps there than anybody in racing, just for the testing and the racing alone. So I'm going to miss it. You know, people always are saying, well, what about the short tracks? I don't think that track's, it's not going to go away. It's going to be there. But I don't see the future of short track racing in Winston Cup being very strong right now. If you can't seat 100,000 people and pay a $2 million purse in the very near future, you're going to have a tough time staying on the Winston Cup schedule. So it's just a matter of what it takes to support this sport right now, and it takes big facilities.
1977, your first win at Wilkesboro. Yeah. I think you gave it a degree of difficulty of 1.5 on the Kale scale.
Oh,
what was that?
Oh, Kale, you know, Kale is every week, oh man, this is a tough, he's always, you know, red-faced and worn out, and you know, but he'd won the race. He said, man, this is the toughest race I ever run. These cars are hot and blah, blah, blah. And I said, man, we got to do something about it. You know, we got to come up with a way of rating these racetracks. And so I came up with a Kale scale, and that was, I don't know, it wasn't but about a 4 or 5 as far as I was concerned. He thought it was about 8 or 10, I guess.
You were 30, he was 38, so I guess now,
yeah,
is there a DW scale?
Well, you know, there was a
time
time when I said, man, I got these guys right where I want them. Time's on my side. They're going to wear out, and I'm going to keep on going. Darn if I don't find myself in that same position today.
Well, you know, you mentioned you had a lot of firsts there, a lot of success, and we got a little panel made up here just to check things out at North Wilkesboro. 44 races, 10 wins, 19 top fives, 9 poles, and 2,923 laps led. Now, it wasn't just in juniors cars. I know that probably had something to do with it, but when you were with Dygard, you won there too. What was the deal? What about Wilkesboro?
It was like Nashville. It's an old, worn-out surface, 5/8 mile racetrack. It was just like Nashville. Matter of fact, the setup I run there today is the same setup I run at Nashville. Had the same feel to me. It does have a little uphill and a little downhill, and you kind of adjust for that. But really and truly, it was just like some of the racetracks I grew up on throughout the Midwest and in the Southeast there. So I just found it to my liking from the get-go. And I think what NASCAR does, or has done, is they take a look at tracks where I've won a lot and had a lot of success, and they try the hard as they can to get those off the schedule. Because Nashville's no longer there, Riverside's no longer there, now Wilkesboro's no longer there, so it's just a matter of time until they'll have them all off, I guess.
So what you say is NASCAR trying to get DW off the schedule?
They're trying to get rid of all the tracks about the same time they get rid of me, I reckon.
You know, I remember the first time I went to Wilkesboro, it was 10 or 12 years ago, and you were leading, you were in juniors car, and that was before they had the wall to protect the pit crews, and Stevie was sitting there in a director's chair. You came charging in, and I swear you got like that close to her. She reached out with her foot on the front bumper, kicked back, jumped off, and then when you left pit, she still hit the stopwatch. That was something.
She's been there for 27 years, and she was one of the first wives to work in the pits. And, you know, I had a lot of crew chiefs through the years tell me when I drove for Junior, we would rather beat you in Junior at North Wilkesboro than we had to win the Daytona 500. I think that was how significant our success was there and how other teams felt about us winning there all the time. And, you know, you still got the Junior Johnson grandstand, and there's just a lot of tradition there that you can't replace. And what I don't want to have happen is I don't want us to get so big that we don't remember where we came from, and I sure don't want us to burn any bridges. We need tracks like North Wilkesboro. You got to have development racetracks. You got to have tracks for guys to learn how to race. And tracks like North Wilkesboro have taught a lot of drivers a lot about racing.
Is that the major impact that it's had on the sport?
Well, I think so. You know, you can come off of a track like Nashville. You can take a Bobby Hamilton or someone like that who's raced Nashville like I have, or Jeremy Mayfield, and they can come into Winston Cup, and at least when they get to that racetrack, they feel like they got a chance. You take them to Darlington or Daytona, and they feel overwhelmed or intimidated. But at least they feel like, well, when I get there, I know that kind of racetrack, and I'm going to be competitive, and it gives everybody an opportunity to run up front.
All right, while we got you here, we're going to monopolize your time. So when we come back, Darrell and I will talk a little bit more. Maybe we'll talk about some past moments and also what's ahead in the future, maybe, too. Darrell Waltrip, third all-time on the NASCAR Winston Cup win list, a total of 84 victories. That's tied with Bobby Allison. 40% of his career finishes have been top fives, won more than $15 million. Darrell, all I can say is, wow!
Well, you know, you've heard other athletes say it, I've had a great ride. It's been a lot of fun, and I don't want to see it come to an end. I still enjoy what I do. I love the sport very much. I love where the sport is right now. Everybody likes to go new places and do new things, especially when you've been doing this for 25 years. So Texas coming on and California, and you know, there's some other things that are probably going to happen. I want to be around to have get a little bit of taste of that modern era, if you will, before I put the old helmet up.
Everybody talks about Richard Petty, the king of stock car racing. When you finally do put the helmet up, how do you want people to remember you? Well, you know, there's just people in every sport. I don't care if it's Babe Ruth or Jack Nicklaus or Arnold Palmer. Their impact. They leave impacts that you can never replace. Nobody's going to take their place. Richard, maybe if his name had been Joe, it wouldn't be King Richard. It'd be King, you know, it wouldn't be King. It'd be something else. But because he's the king of the sport, and I used to be a little bit jealous of what Richard accomplished. I always thought I was a little bit better than he was. I always thought I'd do more than he did. But in all honesty, when you look at the records and you put everything in perspective, he's the man. I won 7 in a row at Bristol, and I know that's I love the feat that I did there, but Richard did it too. And you might win 7 championships, but winning that 8th one, you're going to take somebody special, real special, to beat that record. To win Daytona as many times as Richard Petty has, it's going to take somebody real special. He's the man. We all know he's the man. We can build on that and we can improve on that, but you can't replace Richard Petty. So how do I want to be remembered? I just want to be remembered as a guy that came in and got close to Richard Petty. Well, you mentioned impact. I know 1983 Martinsville Spring Race, first Winston Cup race I ever covered, you were the first driver that I ever interviewed. And I had covered the World Series in St. Louis between the Cardinals and the Brewers in the fall of '82. And let me tell you, it was a little bit different. I mean, you hooked me. It was like, hey, these guys are nice. And then Sunday morning during the drivers' introductions, everybody's Darrell Waltrip on the pole.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, he seems like a nice guy. What are you people doing?
I bet you thought, man, why did I do a special on this guy? No, you know, I made it was a goal of mine, and I made it a point to work with people like you, because in the early years of my career, and as the sport as the media became a bigger player in the sport, whether it was television or print, I made it a point to go out and talk to people like you, because I wanted you to know that this was a great sport. I wanted you to realize that you were doing the right thing. That you may have did a special on Darrell Waltrip this week, but you'll do it on Terry Labonte next week, or you'll do it on one of the other drivers next week. I wanted you to know that we're real people, and you can really make a story out of what we're all about.
You know, at that point in time, and for a few years after that, it was like Darrell Waltrip was the man. He was the best driver out there.
Yeah.
Who is now? Is Jeff Gordon the best guy out there on the racetrack?
Well, I see a lot of parallels between his career and mine. As I told you a little while ago, 20 years ago, you had David, Richard, Cale, Bobby, Benny, Buddy. You had that crowd that had won all the races, and then I came along. And all of a sudden I was a young guy, and a little cocky, a little arrogant, and I said, I got these guys right where I want them. They're all old, and I'd beat them every week if opportunity's there and the car's there, I'll beat them every week. And I did. And now that's where Jeff Gordon is. He looks at me, and he looks at Dale, and he looks at Rusty, and he looks at Bill, and he looks at the guys that are out there right now, and he says, got these guys right where I want them. Who's going to take our place and who's going to take his place? Lord only knows, but they're out there. So hopefully it'll be Rich Bickle.
Oh, okay. Well, that was my next question. Do you see somebody out there? I mean, do you keep an eye on the Saturday night tracks, and do you see anybody out there with a whole lot of potential?
There is a lot of young drivers out there right now that I have talked to in the last several months that want to talk to me about driving my truck, my diehard truck, or talk to me about, my second Winston Cup effort. There's a lot of young talent out there right now that there's a diamond in the rough. I don't know if it's Tony Stewart, I don't know who it is, but there's a diamond in the rough, and if you just have the knack for picking that diamond, that's the trick. If you pick up that hunk of coal, then and it turns into a diamond, and that I don't know if I got that or not, but some people do.
Well, Darrell, thanks a lot for stopping by.
Oh, it's great.
Good luck this weekend.
My
and
pleasure.
We'll, see you up there. Coming up on RPM tonight, hang on tight. Open Wheel Wednesday comes your way next.